And we continue at 2:06 in the afternoon on the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wings in Culver City.
John, it's time for yet another edition of Gavin Can't Stop Swearing.
I have a high threshold for the on Fox.
Just a potty mouth.
And that's a up system.
Andrew Dice Newsom, ladies and gentlemen. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. It is our pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. You can get her online at AnnCoulter.com, which is where you can subscribe to her Substack, and she puts up excellent interviews with any number of commentators and experts out there. My favorite happens to be when she has Mickey Kaus on, always a great conversation. You can follow her on X at Ann Coulter. Ann Coulter, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here, John Phillips.
Well, thank you so much for stopping by. So I want to talk to you about something that I think needs to be said, which is we, of course, all know the fact that your book, Adios America, was what prompted Donald Trump's initial speech after coming down the golden escalators and announced his campaign for the presidency back in, I think that was 2015. And then you and him had a bit of a break the first term because of the influence of others who, let's just say, weren't on board with the agenda. And the first term didn't involve a lot of the prescriptions for solving the problem that were laid out in Adios America, which was the basis of the campaign. Then, of course, 2020 comes around. Joe Biden's there for 4 years. And Trump 2.0 looks very different than Trump 1.0. I know you probably think it's because of Ivanka and Jared aren't there, and maybe some of the advisors who were leading him down the wrong path the first time around aren't there. But I want to give you a lot of credit for this, because I think that you staying the course and staying as an honest broker on this subject and not rolling over as many did, but just keeping laser focused on the subject of immigration and on the solutions of what needs to be done to solve it, and really not giving an inch, because you didn't budge from the time you wrote that book, when you supported him at the very beginning, until today. Your position has been pretty much the same. This is what needs to be done to fix the problem. If you do this, it'll work. Trust me, we've seen it work other places. And he hasn't signed up for all of the solutions, including the wall, which I know means a lot to you. But in terms of the other things that are going on right now, like the lawsuit that was just filed today against the state of California, city of Los Angeles, challenging sanctuary state and city policies, what we're seeing right now with the ICE raids, what we're seeing right now with the federal government essentially being on the same page, where last time around you had people in the government working against ICE and working against the deportation of illegal aliens. Now word is out that that's just not tolerated. Without you, I don't think we'd be seeing any of this happening. I really don't. I think that you maintaining your honest broker status and taking a lot of slings and arrows for it is the reason that this subject is still out there.
Thank you, John Phillips. Yes, I have been viciously attacked. I have to say, I find it utterly baffling. These people who supported Trump in 2016, where the chant at every rally, and I was introducing him at rallies very soon after he announced, because of his immigration position, it was build the wall, build the wall. No one could have missed it. There were signs, there were chalk etchings, there was a callback with every audience, not to mention ending anchor babies, deporting the dreamers, and then we just complete about face. And I don't understand this personality cult. I like politicians who do the things that are going to make the country better. And I mean, if you didn't support Jeb Bush in 2016, and very few people supported Jeb Bush, why would you like Trump's first term? All we got was tax cuts, and, he embraces the dreamers and just completely blew off the wall and bombed foreigners. I mean, what do you like about him? In any event, yes, we have gotten, who wants to dwell on the negative, we have gotten a complete turnaround. And I don't know, I mean, it could be because as I believe, he lost in 2020, and I don't care how much Democrats cheat. They cheat all the time. They have always cheated. I have been on Democrats cheating for a long time. I'm glad other Republicans, got keen on this in 2020. They were cheating in 1980 and 84 when Ronald Reagan won a couple of landslides. If Reagan had won in 1980, promising to defeat the Soviet Union and slash taxes to bring the economy back, and instead had kept the top tax rate at whatever it was, 80-something%, and instead of calling the Soviet Union and fighting the Soviet Union, the evil empire had been like Jimmy Carter and said, Americans have an inordinate fear of communism. Okay, so if he'd done the opposite of the things he said, and we didn't defeat the Soviet Union, and we didn't get a booming economy, you think he would have won a landslide in 1984? No, we'd have Republicans whining, oh, they cheated. Yeah, they always cheat. He did lose in 2020, only one, as I pointed out, only one demographic compared to 2016. And I know he spent so much time going after the black vote, bragging about how he was releasing prisoners, which was fantastic after 2020 and the BLM riots. In any event, no, the only group that did not support him with the same strength as in 2016 were white people, especially white men. So apparently I wasn't the only one who noticed that he governed us like Jeb Bush. Hopefully that woke him up. I think the indictments, just the ridiculous persecution, it did kind of light a fire under him to really annoy liberals. And the way to really annoy liberals is to keep his promises on immigration. But he is, by and large, doing it now. And he got rid of course, Jared Kushner. What a difference a Kushner-less presidency makes. And no, it's been fantastic. I mean, I feel like I finally got the president I voted for, I campaigned for, I wrote a book about in 2015 and 16. We finally seem to have gotten him.
Well, let's take one particular aspect of what's going on right now, something you wrote about quite extensively in Adios America, which at the time I think was really the first time in a mainstream sort of way this argument was put out there saying, no, birthright citizenship is not something that was debated in Philadelphia. This is not something that's in the Bill of Rights. This is not something that's even legal. This has nothing to do with immigration. That was about the slaves.
Yes. The evidence, the historical evidence, the Supreme Court opinions is overwhelming. I mean, come on, these are amendments that were added. They weren't part of the original Constitution. They were added after, what was it again? Big event, Civil War. Remember the Civil War, everybody? And those amendments were expressly, exclusively about slavery. Why is it phrased in that weird way, anyone born subject to the jurisdiction? It was because, not for good reason, the framers of both the Constitution and the amendments were embarrassed about slavery, and they went out of their way to never use words like slavery. They do have slavery or prior servitude in, I think, the 15th Amendment, but they went out of their way not to mention slavery. It was embarrassing. They had to phrase it otherwise. So how do you describe, what had happened, as everyone I think knows, after the Civil War, yeah, okay, great, we've freed the slaves, but in the old slave states, they were still being treated as second-class citizens and heavily discriminated against, thus Reconstruction and not only the civil rights amendments, but the civil rights laws to force Democrats to start treating our fellow Americans, black Americans, as our fellow Americans. So that was what it was about. That's why it was phrased in that weird way, subject to the jurisdiction thereof. And it was, this was just the anchor baby concept was just Justice Brennan scribbling on the Constitution. It was in a case, Plyler v. Doe, that had nothing to do with our babies born to illegals, U.S. citizens. That was not the issue. he didn't even make it part of the body of his opinion. It was dropped in footnote 10, this little aside that, according to this guy, Charles Bouvet, who wasn't a senator, wasn't a drafter of any amendments, who wasn't a president. He's just some guy who wrote a book and apparently didn't want to pay full price for his maid. And he said, I don't see any difference in legal and illegal immigrants having babies. And he just drops this footnote 10 saying that, and people started acting as if the Supreme Court had ruled that way. It's dicta. It's not a holding. It has no legal value whatsoever. And as I pointed out in my column last week, I've obviously written a lot about this, including in Adios America and many columns. But I think this is an all-new point. It occurred to me, if that's what the 14th Amendment meant, if it meant that the children born to illegals are citizens, then why did Brennan have to say it at all? Why did he have to bring it up and slip it into this footnote or put it in the body? Why do you have to say it at all? You don't have Supreme Court justices writing opinions saying, and no troops shall be quartered in private homes without the owner's consent, because it's right there in the Constitution. We don't need a reminder in a footnote dropped there. So, of course, that wasn't the law. That wasn't the understanding of the 14th Amendment. The law is perfectly clear. I'd throw in one other thing. Judge Richard Posner, the most cited federal judge, he's retired now. No friend to conservatives. He's kind of a libertarian wacko, but he is brilliant. I think Justice Scalia described him as the only genius he had ever met. He was quite brilliant, professor at University of Chicago and judge on the Seventh Circuit. In an opinion years ago, 10, 20 years ago, he was agreeing. It was a case with an illegal alien who was appealing from, Ethiopia or something, and she was appealing her deportation. Again, that wasn't the point of what Posner was saying. He concurred in the decision, which was she had to go, for the sole purpose of saying this anchor baby policy is preposterous. It is not constitutional. Congress has got to pass a law and put an end to the madness. That's Justice Posner. Lots of Democrats, Senator Harry Reid, Senator Dianne Feinstein, they've always known this was a BS legal principle. And now, whether it's Fox News or the New York Times, they won't even discuss it. It's just, you're a kook and a racist if you don't think the children born to illegals are citizens. Why? It's right there in the Constitution. It came straight from James Madison. No, it's utter madness. It may be, as I said in last week's column, sometimes even utterly preposterous constitutional principles, just because they have been observed in practice for many years, the Supreme Court will not, and I think this is absolutely wrong. If it's wrong, and just overturn it. But sometimes they'll maintain a preposterous practice that is not consistent with the Constitution. And the last example that also really annoyed me was the Miranda warnings. There's the Constitution does not say if the cop screws up, you have to throw out the confession of a guilty criminal. It's crazy if you think about it. It came from Yale Camisar, from a professor at my law school, University of Michigan, this idea we've got to punish the cop. Well, the cop doesn't care. The next person, the criminal murders, cares. Can't you just dock the policeman pay or something? But anyway, there's nothing in there. No, the exclusionary rule was invented by a law professor, adopted by the court, and it should have been overruled. The court had an opportunity to overrule it in 2000 and did not, basically just saying, it's been around. Who cares if it's unconstitutional? So they could well do that with the anchor babies. Man, I hope they don't.
Today, the big news, as I mentioned before, is that the federal government has filed a lawsuit against the state of California, against the city of Los Angeles, challenging their position as a sanctuary city, a sanctuary state. What do you think is going to happen with that? And I've got to say, could you imagine if Utah just suddenly decided we're not going to comply with the EPA? And if the EPA wants something, We're going to send them to voicemail. We're not going to return their phone calls. We're not going to turn over information. We're not going to turn over data. We just don't believe in that agency, and it's not something we're going to acknowledge. They would be on them like white on rice that day. And now, because it's an immigration issue, oh, well, you've been doing it a long time, so this is just the way we do business here.
Yeah. No, it's stunning. I mean, you're totally right. The left can get away with things that the right could never attempt to do. This is, I guess, the power of the media. But yeah, I mean, why couldn't a state say we're not abiding by federal tax law? We're a sanctuary from federal taxes. So no one in our state will be paying federal taxes. Or I suppose if they want to volunteer, they could. But we're not going to. This is a sanctuary from federal taxes. The idea is preposterous, and particularly, I mean, it is analogous to tax law in the sense that the president, over and over again, the Supreme Court has held, and sometimes in cases that it was very unfortunate, the president has plenary authority over immigration. It is considered part of his dealings with foreign policy because these are people from other countries. So, I mean, when I pointed out before, when little Elian Gonzalez was sent back to a communist dictatorship by Janet Reno, even though the state law, Florida state law, was that no, you don't have custody. You were never married to the mother. You're not the legitimate father, curiously enough. And at first, the feds, Clinton and Janet Reno, said, "Oh, we'll abide by whatever the state law is on this." And then state law goes against them, and they say, "No, we're sending them back to Cuba anyway." And the Supreme Court ruling on that was, this is an immigration matter. It's up to the president. If Democrats want to send little 8-year-old boys back to a communist dictatorship, that's their authority. So the idea that a state can then say, no, we're a sanctuary. Florida should have done it back then to save poor little Elian Gonzalez.
All right. We're out of time right now, Ann, but thank you so much for stopping by. A pleasure as always. Go read Ann's column at AnnCoulter.com. Subscribe to her Substack and follow her on X at Ann Coulter. Ann Coulter, thank you so much for stopping by.
Good to talk to you, John Phillips. Bye-bye.
Likewise. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, with the end of the show quickly approaching, if you want to continue listening to us after we sign off at 3, that's easy to do.
All you got to do is search for The John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's the Apple Podcasts app, iHeart, Spotify. Search for The John Phillips Show. Hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes. You could do a Google on the YouTube. You could get the KABC app in Southern California, the KSFO app in Northern California. Listen to us wherever you are. Share the shows with your friends. Post them on Facebook. Either that or I guess you could not do that and listen to Gavin Newsom's podcast instead.
For the on Fox.
Right now, it's time to open up the California Crime Blotter.
If the cashier is dummy.
Questions?
And Randy, we spend a lot of time on this program talking about fake doctors, but this story involves a fake tow truck company.
No, thank you.
Somebody with a flatbed was trying to steal a car in Sherman Oaks. The problem with a fake tow truck driver, much like a fake doctor, is they don't actually know how to be a tow truck driver, so he didn't properly secure the car that he was stealing. It flew off the bed and crashed into a telephone pole.
Uh-oh.
For more, here is KTLA.
Back here locally at 6 o'clock, a hit-and-run crash caught on camera over in Sherman Oaks. This tow truck driver stealing a truck slams into several parked cars, losing the truck and doing some serious damage.
Sounds like a chain reaction of horrors.
If you're going to try to make a living at stealing cars with a tow truck, you should learn how to operate it.
That's probably good advice.
People who live in this area say it's not the first time that a phony tow truck driver has tried to steal a vehicle from their neighborhood.
The recent thefts have prompted many to install security cameras. KTLA's Carlos Acedo is live in Sherman Oaks with more tonight. Carlos.
What's it like watching the local news in other states? Because this really just feels like a California thing at this point.
And by the way, if someone in Sherman Oaks hasn't responded to your phone call, it's not that they're ignoring you. They don't have access to the phone.
Hey, Kareem, this is one of those unbelievable stories.
It's pretty believable.
We're used to it by now.
Hey, Kareem, this is one of those unbelievable stories. A runaway tow truck leaves behind a trail of destruction driving through this neighborhood in Sherman Oaks. You can still see some of the damage left to that power pole.
Remember the fake tow truck driver in San Francisco that tried to steal someone's car while they were stopped at a red light?
That's pretty aggressive.
Apparently, the tow truck driver was stealing the pickup that was on its flatbed, but it wasn't properly secured as he started driving away. The video, it's gnarly, it's dramatic.
Even though this is a audio format, you can still get a gist of what this is.
Every single edition of The Blotter sounds like a Looney Tunes episode.
This is the sound of what happens when you try to steal a pickup truck and you don't secure it. At this point, I'd just like to remind everyone, it's not cheap to live in Sherman Oaks.
I love that the last thing you hear is the hubcap going down the street.
There you have it, a wild scene in the 13,000 block of Compton Street. Just after 8:30 this morning, a speeding driver in a red and black tow truck loses control after careening around the corner with a stolen gray pickup truck swinging off the bed.
I don't think anyone was chasing him. What the hell was he speeding off for?
Imagine if that truck belongs to you and the cops have to explain what happened to it.
The rear of the pickup slides off the bed, slamming into a white pickup that was...
They're playing the sound in the background again.
Imagine owning the white pickup.
The rear of the pickup slides off the bed, slamming into a white pickup that was parked on the street. The suspect then continues to drive, crashing the still attached stolen pickup.
This is just your friendly reminder that if you ever choose to move to a part of the city of Los Angeles and the only parking is street parking, don't move there.
I don't even live in the city of Los Angeles, but I had situations like this in mind when I picked a house with a 3-car garage.
Still attached stolen pickup into a wooden power pole. That's when the pickup comes off the suspect's tow truck bed. The crash was caught from multiple angles, including dash cam from a neighbor's vehicle. The series of loud bangs woke up residents on the block, including the homeowners whose parked white pickup was totaled. She asked that we not show her face.
Can you imagine filing that insurance claim? Yeah. Someone was stealing somebody else's pickup truck. They didn't fasten it. They bent the corner too tight. The thing rolled off and destroyed my car.
Oh, you're getting flagged for fraud.
I mean, I woke up from my sleep at 8:30 in the morning. Screeching sounds is what woke me up, and then bang, bang, bang.
Get used to it, lady.
And then bang, bang, bang followed. I just ran out of the front door.
You know, I have no use for this in my life, but I want to revisit this moment in history. And in December, when we do our Drop of the Year show, I want to remember.
And then bang, bang, bang.
We're going to think that someone got shot when we listen to that without context.
Followed. I just ran out of the front door. And I assumed someone had a car accident because all I saw was 2 cars. And the neighbor just rushed over. He said they were stealing my truck with the tow truck, and they fled the scene. And that's how everyone just came out of their homes.
Could you imagine being woken up by that sound?
The sound in question is, of course...
As opposed to, I don't know, bacon frying in the pan.
First responders did come out quickly. Police say that the suspect attempted to steal a person's pickup on the flatbed of his tow truck. The pickup wasn't properly secured, leading to the chain reaction that we witnessed. The stolen pickup belongs to a neighbor. Now, LADWP temporarily reinforced the power pole, but power, we're told, was out for several hours.
No power for the whole neighborhood because of this jackass.
That's the cherry on top of the sundae.
Following that collision, back here live, thankfully nobody was injured as a result, but the suspect, the driver, was able to get away, and at this hour we're told that he is still at large. So,
of course, it's a Los Angeles story.
Like clockwork.
Anyone with any information regarding his whereabouts should contact the LAPD. We're live in Sherman Oaks. Carlos Salcedo, KTLA 5 News.
All right. There's a lot of nice people in Los Angeles, but boy, do we live with a lot of a-holes.
Okay, now if you are the owner of the white truck and you make a claim with your insurance company, who do you go after? Do you go after the owner of the tow truck, which I'm sure is also stolen, or do you go after the owner of the car that got stolen and was insecurely loaded on the back of that truck that then hit yours?
Oh, that would just be insult to injury.
I have no clue how insurance works, but I bet you anything that person is insured, and if it's Sherman Oaks, probably has a decent policy, and that's who they're going to go after.
And then bang, bang, bang.
All right, Randy, it's time to reopen the California Crime Blotter.
If the cashier is dummy.
Questions?
And this one is kind of a curveball because it involves a street takeover that didn't happen in Oakland.
Nope, this was in parts of Los Angeles County, including Bellflower and Lakewood. And when you've got street takeovers, you've got smash and grabs and looting. Here is KCAL.
Street takeovers and business break-ins. Several stores hit by thieves in Bellflower and Lakewood overnight.
KCAL News reporter Zach Boetto has video of the crimes that you'll only see right here on KCAL News.
We're going to submit today's show to the Golden Mics for natural sound.
Again, people are trying to sleep when all of this is going on.
An intersection takeover in Bellflower. Quickly turning into a burglary free-for-all.
Yeah, that's the sound of the idiots ransacking the stores.
So when you hear cars doing donuts in the middle of an intersection, you know what's going to happen to the 7-Eleven next.
Can we get the National Guard for this crap?
Quickly turning into a burglary free-for-all.
I mean, they happen every single weekend, usually at the same intersections. How do we not shut this crap down?
They won't, because the people who are there witnessing the street takeover outnumber the cops by like 100-1.
New video shows the moments overnight that things at the intersection of Woodruff and Artesia got out of control. In the surveillance video, you can see the gas station worker even try to dodge something thrown at him.
Oh, come on!
They really abuse the cashier in these situations.
That cashier is no dummy.
If the cashier is dummy.
However, cashier is dummy because you can get $20 an hour to go work at Jack in the Box. So why are you at 7-Eleven? It's the most dangerous job in California, being a convenience store clerk. Why would anyone do it? I don't know.
At this point, it's got to be right up there with crash test dummy.
At him. While he tries to hold off the people trying to storm his store.
At this point, just give up. It's not worth $17 an hour. Get out of there.
To save what? Some cigarettes and Twinkies?
How much broken glass have we heard just in this one piece from this one event that happens every weekend all over LA County and places like Oakland?
If you're in that industry, business is good.
Those responsible hopping from a gas station to a beauty store, breaking into ATMs and cash registers.
I've said it before, I'll say it again. Having an ATM in your establishment is nothing but a liability.
Yep, you may want to leave those behind.
Then down the street off Del Amo and Paramount in Lakewood.
Can you add up at this point, just on the amount of crashes that you've heard, how much this whole night cost?
Oh, it's got to be hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Down the street off Del.
So when they tell you that, oh, we can't put these people in prison because that would cost $135,000 per person per year, this is how much damage is done in one night.
Well, and you can't calculate certain things because if you make an insurance claim with your insurance company, if you're the 7-Eleven, then your rates are going to increase in perpetuity, and the cost is going to be passed on to the owner. So the taxpayers don't get stuck with that, but then the cost of whatever it is that they sell at the 7-Eleven is going to go up to pay for the increase in insurance premiums. At a certain point, all of us pay for this.
Down the street off Del Amo and Paramount in Lakewood.
14, 15.
Another burglary around the same time, showing people breaking into a phone store and leaving behind a trail of destruction.
Joke's on them, though, because it was Metro PCS.
Now the businesses that were hit are left.
You know, the soundtrack to Southern California used to be the Beach Boys. Now it's Broken Glass.
Sorry, Brian Wilson.
Are left to clean up.
I just received a burglary alarm, and it looks like 15 individuals came in there and took everything.
This business owner saying he's now facing at least $10,000 in losses from the break-in and is hoping law enforcement can find those responsible.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, maybe in Orange County, not in L.A.
Can find those responsible.
I just want the people that did this to get caught.
Zach Boetto, KCAL News.
The LA County Sheriff's Department has not connected the burglaries in Bellflower to the ones that happened in Lakewood, but they are still investigating. Detectives are also working to identify the thieves and have not yet made any arrests.
This kind of crap happens every single weekend. And even though Holly Mitchell puts out a task force that's supposed to deal with it, we have had zero results because there is no political will from our electeds to do what needs to be done. They handled this in certain parts of Northern California. I believe it was El Dorado County. They saw a street takeover. They knew it was going to happen. They blocked every possible exit out of an intersection, arrested everyone, and towed every car, and no one got their car back till the cases were adjudicated. You know what? Street takeovers don't happen there anymore.
And it's easy to just assume that both of these crimes are connected and it's the same people. But unless you have evidence that suggests that that's true, I don't know if I would run with that assumption. There are a lot of people out there that love these street takeovers, and with social media, it's easy for them to communicate with one another. So you may have two different populations of people who just decided to do it on the same night. And if they're not shut down, as Randy just explained, guess what? You're going to get more of it.
Hey, this drop works for both stories.
And then bang, bang, bang.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Al writes in from the Port of Oakland on Oakland break-ins. Guys, they're not looting. They're getting their reparations. My baby girl Shang likes that, so let's hear from her, guys.
That's right. I like that. That was amazing.
Let's go to Paul in San Francisco. Paul, hello.
Yes, regarding ranked choice voting, if the New York system is like San Francisco's, you do not have to put down every reasonable candidate. You can leave the loony left off the ballot. You can just put down the sane ones.
Right. You could leave off, for example, if you were voting in New York, you could say, I want Curtis Sliwa as my number one. I want Eric Adams as my number two. I want Cuomo as my number three. And then don't even rank Mamdani.
Exactly. That's how Boudin got elected here, because of ranked choice voting, the DA. So, you don't have to put everybody down.
I don't know if you heard my interview with Willie Brown, the former mayor of San Francisco. I had him on the program a month or two ago. And he basically said, unless and until you get rid of ranked choice voting, you're going to end up with unqualified people running these big cities. Voters should be forced to make
undemocratic,
a choice.
Yeah, exactly. It's undemocratic when you think about it.
Correct. The theory behind it is, well, let's save money so we don't have to have a runoff. Well, no, the public benefits from a runoff. because you have two candidates. They both make their case, and the more compelling case wins the vote. And it may cost more money, but that's okay. We live in a democracy. Yeah. We're supposed to have a debate of ideas, and then we're supposed to have a vote, and then whoever wins the most votes wins the election. That's how it works.
Yeah, the left put that in, established that because they know that their candidates will not get elected, but they knew they could sneak in by the moderates canceling each other out.
All right. Thank you so much for the call, sir. I appreciate it. You know, at a restaurant, Randy, you don't get to pick half of one dish and half of another. You get the chicken or the fish.
Unless you do soup and half a sandwich.
That's true. I think at the Cracker Barrel, you can have 3 entrees as part of one. Red Lobster, too.
At Chili's, they got that appetizer trio. Pick 3.
Chili's ruined it all. All right, that's going to do it for us today, but we'll be back tomorrow at noon for another edition of The John Phillips Show.